more and more every week, I think there's almost two North Carolina Tar Heels to talk about. There's the football team, and there's the tabloid fodder. There's the who's going to start at quarterback, looking like it's going to be Gio Lopez, and the did their GM go to Saudi Arabia 2 weeks before the season started to fundraise? Right? There's the what does the defense have to do to lock in and live up to the Belichick reputation? And there's how much influence does Jordon Hudson have over Bill Belichick? There's two separate things going on here. Some would say you can't separate them, but I think it's fair to the student athletes to do so. So we're going to have two conversations here. We're going to have a football conversation, then we're going to have the other stuff conversation. Football conversation, it's a must-win. Tonight against Cal on the road, it's a must-win. I don't see a way they get to 4 wins if they don't win this one. And if UNC goes from pretty consistently at least threatening for 8 wins under Mac Brown and they don't get half that under the first year of Bill Belichick, it becomes a very difficult sell that things are moving in the right direction.
If they want to get to that 4-win mark, I mean, winning tonight
it's must-win.
Is very, very important because
must-win.
There's probably not going to be another game that they're favored in other than Stanford at home. And even then, depending on how things shake out, who knows?
Pat Welter, who's been covering UNC for WRAL, including the off-field and on-field stuff, tweeted this out earlier today. According to multiple sources, Gio Lopez took first-team reps this week and is expected to start tonight versus Cal. Lopez was injured in the second half of the UCF game and did not play versus Clemson. This is very much a... I'm not saying it's wrong, but it is a absurd I'm right, everybody is wrong move from the UNC Tar Heels. This is them saying preseason we made every right decision. They're not changing any play callers. They're not changing their quarterback. They're not doesn't appear as if they're changing much of anything, despite the fact that they've been one of, if not the worst power conference team in the country, and in some statistics, the worst, including Group of 5 in the country. And they're just rolling it out there saying, no, we were right. No change to the process. Now, I'm not saying Gio Lopez is or isn't the right quarterback to play. He is a bit more mobile than Max Johnson, especially after the injury Max Johnson suffered last year. So perhaps that's what they're thinking. They just need a guy that can run around a little bit. But I'm surprised nothing has changed. And since this week they so earnestly, so obviously said the play callers are not changing, I thought perhaps the quarterback was the thing they were going to point to. And now that they're rolling Gio Lopez back out there, it seems like they're just doubling and tripling down on everything they did at the beginning of the year.
I mean, maybe they're attributing some of his worst games being due to being banged up. Perhaps. I know he got hurt in that TCU game, and now he's had basically 3 full weeks to recover with the bye week sandwiching the Clemson game, but I mean, just based on what we've seen on the field, it's interesting that they would choose to go back to Gio Lopez instead of Max Johnson. Although it's not like, I mean, the offense wasn't like the world on fire against Clemson either. So, I mean, if you want to give it a shot, I mean, you've also got Bryce Baker there. He's a pretty highly touted freshman. Like, at some point, maybe you want to get him some looks under center.
I imagine the Bryce Baker of it all will come into play with 4 games left in the year where he can protect that year of eligibility. But that's just me reading some tea leaves across college football and how a lot of these young stud recruits are treating their freshman year. So from the football perspective, must win. I don't think there's a ton changing as far as scheme. I don't think there's a ton changing as far as roles or players' roles or anything like that. So it is kind of that thing of, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I don't think Cal is any kind of a world beater. They started very hot. I am a fan of their quarterback, Jaren Kiave Sagupolutele, but he's still a freshman, young guy, was one of the bigger recruits in the country. But he is, they're not a world beater. This is as gettable of a game as you can find. There's some weird stuff, as Max brought up earlier, going on with the betting lines. Cal opened up as a 12.5-point favorite, got all the way down to just a 7.5-point favorite, and I believe it's now back up to 8.5, which means there's some sharps out there that are all in on UNC.
Well, I mean, maybe it's just they see value in betting against the spread of a team that got shut out 34-0 by San Diego State. It's very Jekyll and Hyde, I feel, with Cal this year. Yep. Like, sometimes they look incredible, and other times they look like a bottom feeder ACC team. The quarter, we're gonna have a lefty battle too if Gio Lopez starts with Sagapolitelli.
It could be that as well. I mean, maybe the as soon as it was obvious Gio Lopez was starting, maybe that's what moved the line, and they think that he is a 4-point better quarterback than Max Johnson. I don't know.
Is that moving the line 4 points in their favor?
I'm putting it out there as a possibility because I can't explain it. Usually moves that big in a betting line come with very obvious reasons. Comes with an All-American saying he's going to play. Comes with a huge injury on the other side, something like that. But this one's a little bit more difficult to explain. Now we get to the behind the scenes. I want to be clear on this. I watched the entirety of Pablo Torre Finds Out, the episode with Bill Belichick today that came out today. It's not with Bill Belichick. They talked about Belichick and Jordon Hudson and the influence in the inner circle of Bill Belichick's tight-knit group of advisors. I think Pablo Torre has a very interesting place in sports media right now. He is diving into investigative journalism in a way that I think is valuable, right? I think the stuff he did with Kawhi Leonard and the kind of ghost payments, some of the other stuff he's doing is very interesting. I do think sometimes he gets in so deep that he doesn't realize like where he is. This version of the reporting came across very gossipy to me. They had a hot mic from a long time ago. Okay, this is like not this year. This is years ago. A hot mic when Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia, who's now the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, longtime NFL defensive coordinator / offensive coordinator / head coach of the Lions, they were recording a podcast that's trying to let people into like a coaching room, right? What would you tell a team? Well, here we're going to break down some plays. And the microphones picked up between recording. This is not like on the podcast. Jordan Hudson, Bill Belichick's girlfriend, being like a really weird micromanager. Like trying to, at one point she asked if the entire graphics team from Underdog Sports was that's who was running the show, although they were recording it at NFL Films, wanted to meet with the entire graphics team so they can show them what they're doing wrong. She couldn't understand why graphics weren't done in 2 seconds on Adobe Photoshop, and she kept saying Adobe Photoshop, saying she's used Adobe Photoshop. As somebody that has used Adobe Photoshop, I'll tell you right now, if you've ever used Adobe Photoshop, you don't call it Adobe Photoshop.
Well, it's just so you get on the template and then you just hit delete and you just type in what you want and it's done.
She didn't say you just hit delete. She said you hit delete, as if she was deleting like a letter at a time by pressing delete once. It was strange. It was cringy. It was secondhand embarrassment. It was the equivalent of somebody that has played Madden going up to Bill Belichick and saying, I know what you're doing wrong on third downs. And because Jordan Hudson was being co-signed by Bill Belichick, like empowered by Bill Belichick, everybody had to listen. Everybody had to sit there and go, oh, I think we could do that. Should we look into that? Oh, that might be a new segment idea. Like they had to sit there and entertain it, and it was weird and it was awkward. And Matt Patricia, I think, to use another video game example, unplugged the controller. At one point in time, he just looked down at the table and went motionless, just as like, what am I doing here?
The notification popped up on the screen. Matt Patricia has left the party.
Yeah, it was a lot of secondhand embarrassment. Like I was going, ooh, she doesn't realize how that's coming across. I don't care. This was the reason why I said it felt gossipy is who cares if Bill Belichick empowered his girlfriend to be too hands-on with a podcast years ago? That impacts absolutely nothing. If those people didn't want to work with them, cool, like that's their right. But Bill Belichick was the name attached to that podcast that had all of the leverage, and all of the reason anyone was going to listen to that podcast was Bill Belichick. And if he wanted to use that little nepotism angle, whatever you want to call it, to get his girlfriend, talking graphics, I don't care. I don't care. And it felt, to be honest, kind of mean that they're just airing this, and then they would interject, and Pablo Torre and Katie Nolan and some other guy would just laugh. And I get it. It's funny. Don't get me wrong. There were times I chuckled, but it was like they didn't think this was being recorded. At one point in time, it's literally them whispering to each other outside of the earshot of everybody else, and they didn't realize the mic was hot, and they were talking about all of the things that the people that were running the podcast could do better, and other people that they've worked with in the past that they would rather have in those positions, which I get it. It sounds like they're being catty. It sounds like they're being like ungrateful. But who doesn't talk to their significant other about people at work that aren't getting their job done? Right? Like you've never, after a long day of work, gone home to your significant other when you think no one else is listening and gone, duh, today was a long day. So-and-so, didn't finish the TPS report, so I had to step in and make it happen. Like, of course. We and they weren't supposed to hear that. And whoever was recording it, courtesy. Soon as they start whispering to each other, jump on the speaker and go, hey, just so you know, your mics are still live. We can hear you. Like, I'm all for. I don't want to say I'm all for. That makes it sound like I'm eager to. I get it. Bill Belichick showed up with high football expectations, and the football has been bad. If you want to talk about third down decisions, roster management, if you want to talk about who he has hired as a coach, go nuts. If you expect me to act like it's within the realm of normal conversation to eavesdrop on his conversations with his girlfriend from years ago and think that's somehow newsworthy enough for all of us to go, that's why their team stinks. Like, that's one bridge too far. Now, I will say this. Pablo Torre did quite a bit of reporting in which Pablo revealed, and I was surprised he did this, that when Pablo reported earlier this year that Jordon Hudson was being banned from the facility, according to one of his inside sources, he outed that source as Michael Lombardi, the GM and Bill Belichick's right-hand man. Pablo said Michael Lombardi told Pablo, this is all according to Pablo Torre on the podcast, he said Michael Lombardi told him that Jordon Hudson was banned. That right there is interesting because not only was Jordon Hudson she didn't end up being banned, the first game she showed up with a necklace with the word banned, B-A-N-N-E-D, as the word on the necklace. So she was flaunting that she wasn't banned based on the reports. And the reports started with Bill Belichick's right-hand man. So if there are, and Bill Belichick is notoriously tight, like a close-knit group, if there are only a couple of people that he listens to and takes advice from and will maybe change his opinion based on what they tell him, and two of them are feuding, whether they know it or not, with each other, that becomes an issue. That is what becomes an issue. And I thought this was a good question asked by Brian Murphy, WRL Sports investigative reporter on Twitter. Just kind of after reading it, this was one of the questions that popped into his brain, or after listening to the podcast. And when he asked it, I went, you know what? That's a good question. So here's the question. Did UNC think when they hired Belichick, they were getting Belichick with Josh McDaniels and Matt Patricia? And instead, they got Belichick with Jordon Hudson and Mike Lombardi? Because I think if you Matt Patricia's doing really well as defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Josh McDaniels had turned around a Patriots offense that even when Drake May looked really good last year, the offense did not look really good. They're on a 3-game win streak. If you gave Belichick those guys as coordinators, I think we might be looking at things a little bit differently. And maybe that's what UNC thought they were hiring. And instead, they got the other two. Not as good. The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9, The Fan. But I do think it's fair to remember that they're humans. As awkward and cringeworthy as it was, they're still people.